Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. The Tough Girl podcast is sponsorship and ad-free thanks to the monthly financial support of patrons. To find out more about supporting your favourite podcast and becoming a patron, please check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and help me with the mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media. All patrons will get their name on a dedicated patrons page on the Tough Girl website. All female patrons, $5 and above, are invited to join the closed Facebook group, the Tough Girl Tribe. Today, I'm delighted we're going to be speaking with Sara Safari. She's an author, speaker, mountain climber, college professor, electrical engineer, and an advocate for women's empowerment.
I actually listened to some of your podcasts last week, 10 in a row actually. And then I realized you had invited a few of mountain climbers, and some of them were even Everest climbers. So I thought, I'm just another Everest climber. How can I make this more interesting? So I decided to talk about my Greenland crossing because I thought there are not that many people who have done that, to ski for 30 days across Greenland. So a little bit about myself. I am originally from Iran. I was born in Iran and moved to the United States when I was 20 years old to California. And I have 3 siblings. And, we came to the United States because my parents wanted us to have a better life, to have more opportunities. And I didn't know back then how fortunate I am for moving here. I just thought, my parents are moving, I have to move with them. I don't have any other option. But now that I'm a little older, I exactly know how much of a sacrifice they did, because they didn't know the language, they didn't know much of the culture. They lost all their friends, their job, everything that they built all their life, and they brought us here. So I'm very, very thankful to my parents for bringing us here. So mountain climbing, actually, I was a very simple electrical engineer. I studied electrical engineering at UCLA here in California. And I was a very simple electrical engineer, and I had no plans of climbing any mountains until I met the founder of organization called Empower Nepali Girls. And he told me how some girls become victims of human trafficking or are forced to get married at a very young age. And I was just so moved and saddened, and I couldn't believe that this is happening on the other side of the planet. And I'm living my comfortable life here. And it's so easy to make a difference in Nepal. The cost for one girl to go to school one whole year is just $170. And for a lot of us, back in normal life, that was just dinner, And then I thought, I can easily make a difference if I can just get few of my friends to donate $170, then we can save many, many girls. And that's when I promised that I raise $1 per foot of Everest or any mountain that I climb to raise money for these girls so that they can continue their education, so they can have a better life, so that they can have more opportunities, and they can empower their own kids, and they can be a better mom and tell their kids to treat women better. It's like I grew up in a patriarchal culture myself. And when I saw these young women in Nepal, I realized that I could see myself in every single one of them. And I could see what they are dealing with. So it wasn't very far from what I have experienced myself. So it was kind of, in a way, I wanted to climb Mount Everest for them, but really I was climbing it for myself, for little Sara, who never had opportunities when I was a child until I was 20. And then I realized, oh my God, this way it's kind of a very symbolic way of saving myself, saving my little sisters, saving my neighbors, and saving all the people that I knew in the first 20 years of my life. And I still know them. And I just it was a very symbolic thing for me, even though I was fundraising for a charity in Nepal. And then that was the beginning of my journey. And, I had to train from zero to infinity because I was a very skinny, short person who never worked out so much. I was active, but not active, Everest active. It was just, I would go to UCLA gym to hang out with my friends, not to work out. And, I always loved nature, but not in that level. Not in the level of spending 60 days of my life in nature and camping. I was always scared of spiders. I'm still scared of spiders and cockroaches. So, that hasn't changed. I hated cold weather. I still really don't like cold weather, but I know how to deal with it. I have jackets now. And it was just so out of my comfort zone. Something like climbing Mount Everest for me. I was such a girly girl, like California girl, into wearing swimming suit and, skinny, no muscles. Not, I just, it was so far from reality. I just promised that I'm going to go climb Everest to raise funds and awareness for this charity. And I'm such a shy person. This I'm talking about 7 years ago. I'm not shy anymore. But 7 years ago, I was such a shy person. I couldn't even go to my mom and ask for money. Now I had to go to these perfect strangers and ask for money. So it was a huge change in my life. And then when I was actually climbing Mount Everest and I was on Mount Everest, it was April 25th, 2015. So I trained, climbed a lot of mountains, failed on a lot of mountains, didn't made it. And finally, I was ready for Everest. In parentheses, right before Everest, I climbed Mt Cho Oyu. Cho Oyu is the sixth highest mountain in the world. It's 27,000 feet, 8,200 meters. And, it was beautiful when I stood on top of Cho Oyu. I could see Everest right there next to me. And it was so close that I thought, okay, if I did that, I probably can do this other one. But it was just, that gave me a lot of confidence. And that's why that was very helpful. So that's and again, Cho Oyu, when I was climbing Cho Oyu, that was the first time that I met the girls in Nepal, and I had to go to Nepal, and from Nepal we went to China to climb the mountain, and that was a beautiful journey because every time that I wanted to give up, I thought about the girls, and I imagined their face, their beautiful face, and they were like looking at me like, okay, get up, you cannot sit down, you cannot cry, you cannot get sick, continue on. So that gave me a lot of purpose and motivation, just hanging out with them and then the climb. So after Chuoyu, I tried for Everest, and that was the famous devastating earthquake, the 7.8 earthquake that happened in Nepal in April 25th, 2015. And I was at 20,000 feet when the earthquake hit us. And I did a very good job going into the details of that drama and how I got to that point in my life and how that day made a huge difference in my life. I mean, that was a very sad day. So many people died, many people lost their lives and belongings and family members and, homes. But that day was a turning point in my life because the way I survived, I was on an ice wall, on a vertical wall, like Game of Thrones kind of a wall. And then the earthquake hit, and there were a bunch of avalanches happening, and none of them hit me. There were pieces of ice the size of a car tumbling down the mountain. None of them hit me, and I'm sure, Khumbu Icefall by itself, even without a 7.8 earthquake, it's like avalanches happens left and right, and you don't need an earthquake for the Khumbu Icefall to be dangerous. So when that happened and I survived it, I decided to really change the direction of my life and focus my life on raising funds and awareness to empower young women. And it resonated so much with my heart. So I decided to do the 7 summits, the 7 highest peaks on 7 continents for 7 organizations globally who are empowering women. So I started climbing Kilimanjaro for Tanzanian women and Elbrus in Europe for refugee women, and just I picked different organizations globally all over the world, depending on the continent. And I climbed 6 out of 7, and I went back to do 7 again. Guess what was 7 again? Everest, because I never made it to the top because of the earthquake. So again, I tried to do Everest, but I broke my arm. So I couldn't continue up. I went to the base camp, I took some pictures, but I went back down because, with the broken arm, I mean, there are people with disabilities who actually made it to the top of Everest, but I wasn't prepared in that way to go up Everest with my right arm being broken. So I didn't go. And then the next year, when I decided to go, my husband filed for divorce. So again, my whole plan changed. I couldn't go to Everest. And then this year, when I wanted finally to go finish my 7 summits, pandemic happens, and nobody goes to Everest. Everest is closed. So now next year, hopefully, and hopefully next year I can go and climb Everest. I miss mountains so much, especially high altitude mountains. I just want to feel the feeling of being deprived of oxygen. So that's the journey. But what I mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, but after listening to all the other podcasts that you have, not all of them, but the latest ones, I decided to talk about my Greenland crossing because you already have Everest climbers. And so Greenland crossing happened in actually 2018 during the fall crossing, because there are 2 times of the year that people cross Greenland, during the spring and during fall. So when I was climbing the highest peak in Antarctica, Mount Vinson, we were stuck for 4 days in Union Glacier, which is the place the scientists and the mountain climbers gather up and they wait for the Russian plane, the famous Illusion, to come pick us up. And we wait and we wait and we wait until the weather is good in Chile and the weather good is in Antarctica and the plane can land safely and pick us up. So for the 4 days that we were stuck in Antarctica and we were waiting and waiting, people started talking about their adventures and the people that they knew. And we, just hearing how adventurous people are, and 7 Summit is not the end of being adventurous, and hearing about all these amazing expeditions, and not just now, maybe like the expeditions that happened like 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and just appreciating how we are so lucky these days with this amazing gear that we have and like the capabilities that we have. And I met someone who crossed Greenland, and I'm trying to remember who, I don't remember, but he was talking about how he crossed Greenland, who is planning to cross Greenland, and he went into the stories of how would that go and what is necessary. And I saw myself getting excited and excited, even though I was stuck in Antarctica and I wasn't even finished with this expedition yet. I was so excited about the next expedition. And that was interesting to me. This was so out of my comfort zone again, because I've never done any polar expedition in terms of crossing anything. I'm a mountain climber. I go up vertically, and we always have a base camp. And the cool thing about base camp is you can just sit there and rest, and even if the rest of the team is up, and then join them later. But the thing about crossing, which is very different, there is no base camp, there is no resting. You have to continue up. You have limited amount of food and everything else, and that's it. You have a deadline and you have to make it happen. Or if you are in the middle of the ice, the helicopter has to come pick you up. So I was really excited by the challenge. I thought, okay, this is another Everest for me. This is another project that I have to push myself. But the timing was so close to my divorce that I thought I'm going to use this 30 days of crossing Greenland to meditate and recover and, just reflect on my life until this point. And that was such a good idea, even though crossing Greenland was extremely challenging, and I'll get into details for you. But the highlight for me was just skiing for sometimes even 14 hours a day. And, just walking and walking and walking and pulling 120-pound sleds. We had two sleds with fuel and food and, everything else. And at the beginning, they were extremely heavy. As we started eating and using fuel, they became lighter and lighter and lighter. But at the beginning, they were extremely heavy. So, I'm 120 pounds myself. I'm pretty short and petite. And now I had to pull 120 pounds, like my own weight. And it was very challenging, actually. That was the most challenging part of the expedition for me. And, skiing in my brand new boots, I ended up getting 24 blisters. And my blisters were growing every day. So on the day 30, when we left ice on the other side of the Greenland, oh my God! If there was a contest for the most beautiful foot, I would be the winner. It was just so awful. Anyways, so Greenland expedition was internally and externally a very different expedition for me. I used those 14 hours of skiing like we couldn't see anything some days. Some days it was only cloud, overcast, and we couldn't even see the sun. We couldn't even tell the direction. And it was just so hard because we were so close to the North Pole, even the compass couldn't, it was jittery, it was shaky, and it couldn't show us the right direction all the time. So we had to cross check with a bunch of instruments that we have to make sure that we are on the right path. And for me, it was funny whenever I was walking as the leader, which is the first person who's leading. I'm a right-handed, so which means my right leg is stronger than my left leg, which means I have the tendency to turn to left, I guess. So like the rest of the team would watch me from the back, and they had to correct me all the time. They're like, okay, to the right, to the left, and it was funny. Like sometimes we were just zigzagging our way across Greenland. So that was a very unique expedition. Another thing that was very unique about it was that on day 20, we got to this place in the middle of Greenland, which is like a military base, and it was abandoned like maybe 1980s. And it was so majestic, especially imagine like after 20 days of skiing, we only saw each other. We haven't seen anything man-made other than the stuff that we are carrying with ourselves. And then finally we saw this huge building that looks like a mosque. It wasn't a mosque, but it looked like it. And it was just unique, such a different experience. So for those people, your listeners out there who are looking to do an expedition that is very different from everything else that they've done, I really recommend this Greenland expedition. Like for me, was a very unique trip, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot out of that expedition. 30 days of being with yourself. The feeling was like walking inside a ping pong ball. Walking inside the ping pong ball feels, it was just white, 360 degrees of white. There was nothing else. And just that, like imagine walking for hours and hours every day inside a ping pong ball in a white arena. It's just that there's no views to distract yourself with. As a mountain climber, in the mountains, as you gain elevation, the view changes. So you can distract yourself by the view. There are so many people from all over the world on the mountain. You can distract yourself with people. There's just so much going on. There is a base camp with an amazing kitchen that you can distract yourself with food, but it's crossing, there is none of that, and there are not that many people crossing Greenland. So I had to just be with myself and entertain myself with myself by just cleansing and thinking and detoxifying. So it was a very unique journey for me, because I just had to finally sit down with myself and clear some stuff out. And I'm very lucky that it happened at the time that it happened, the way that it happened with my group, that like some of the people in the group were very supportive of what I was going through. Not everybody, which we'll talk about that maybe later in a different podcast. But that was a very unique journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible what you've been through, and just sort of highlighting a few of the different challenges that you've faced, from dealing with the earthquake over in Everest, a broken arm, going through a divorce, the pandemic. You faced a lot of challenges in your life. And I'd love to know, what's your advice? What are your top tips for other women out there who are going through tough times? What have you learned from your challenges, from your mountaineerings, from crossing Greenland, that you'd be able to apply to other areas of your life, or for other women who are going through a tough situation?
The advice that I have for people is that, this is the learning process. I'm learning every day. So what I learned yesterday, I'm using it today, and then I might learn something new tomorrow. And I learned that I'm not perfect, and I don't have to be perfect. And it's just a learning process, and it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to learn from your mistakes. And we are not supposed to know everything. We are all growing together, and we learn things when we are supposed to learn them. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. So allow yourself to be who you are. Accept yourself fully with whatever you have and whatever you don't have, and however you are and however you are not. And another thing that I learned is that mountain climbing is such a female experience. It's all about patience. It's all about being nurturing. It's like it has all these feminine elements in mountain climbing that, even though out there it looks like a very masculine exercise or sport, and there are more men who are mountain climbers, but I think it's very feminine. Women are so good at it because it needs a lot of patience. On a lot of mountains, when there is a storm and you're supposed to sit in the tent for hours and hours and maybe days and wait for the storm to pass, usually the people who cannot, they get tired and exhausted of waiting is men. They just run out of the tent and they're like, okay, we're done waiting, let's go on, even though it's a storm. But then I've watched a lot of women, they are so good when it comes to deal with a very drastic situation on the mountain. They just become even more patient. They become even more nurturing. They want to take care of everybody, and they try to lift everybody up and giving them just a positive energy. So that has been a very interesting journey for me, learning this. I could find some aspects of myself. I could develop some areas of myself that I couldn't have if I wasn't on the mountains. I really recommend it. I really recommend it to people to try it, maybe even at least once or twice. Like put themselves in that kind of a situation and see what they can learn from the situation. And it might seem like a very crazy big project. Yeah, I hear you. I wasn't a mountain climber. I hated cold weather. I didn't have a pair of hiking boots. I'd never been camping before 7 years ago. And I just started little by little, step by step. And you don't have to see the top of, you don't have to go to the top of Everest tomorrow. You don't have to see the top of the mountain now. You can just take the next step and do one thing at a time. And little by little, you get there.
You talked about being in a group in Greenland and almost the challenging situation of being part of that group and the group dynamics. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what that was like for you and how you managed those dynamics and And just the lessons learned there.
I don't know if you saw, there was an article by National Geographic about our Greenland crossing. So the team dynamic, the group dynamic that we have, that all of us, we were from 7 different cultures. Everybody were from a different culture, from 7 different countries. And so, it was just such an interesting mix of people. And we had people who were way more understanding of the team and the group, usually countries that are socialistic, they practice socialism. Like their view of the expedition was different. It was a teamwork. But then we had people who were very focused. They were on themselves and they were very individualistic, and their whole goal was just accomplishing the crossing, and the group didn't matter very much. It was just very interesting dynamic between people, and everybody were trying to be understanding of the situation, but it was just such a conspiracy thing, because like if you hear this story from different points of views, you might hear a different story. So I don't know. I don't want to call names because there are some people in the team that a lot of people know here, but there is a National Geographic article that you can read about our Greenland crossing.
I will find the link and make sure I include that in the show notes.
Okay.
One of the things that we talk about a lot more now, especially on the podcast, is around the funding and paying for the adventures and challenges, because it's not cheap to go and climb Everest and to have your expedition cancelled because of broken arms and earthquakes and pandemics. Could you share more about the funding and paying for it? Are you self-funded? Are you sponsored? How much are you spending on your mountaineering?
Good question. That's combination. It's funny because I had to really sit down with myself and get clear with what I want to do. So when I was working as an electrical engineer, I was just saving money to buy a house, because usually when people at my age, they decide to buy a house. And I thought, okay, I'm going to save until I have enough to put it down and buy a house. And then at one point, I realized that it is more important for me to climb Mount Everest than buying a house. And then I realized I don't still have enough. I just need to go out there and find sponsors. And it was really hard, especially for me as a very shy person. And I still was so scared of Everest, and I wasn't even believing in myself being able to climb it back then. So I had to go convince these random strangers to help me with that and sponsor me. And I had a lot of events, which it was about fundraising for Empower Nepali Girls. And at the same time, I was looking for sponsors. So I was asking people to introduce me to other companies, organizations, brands, whoever knows that they can support me. Even a little bit would count. And the combination of that, and as I was doing all that, my network was growing and growing and growing. So people started connecting me to all kinds of people who wanted to donate and sponsor and be a part of this trip. Even from a simple, like, I'm going to buy your sleeping bag for you. That was $800, And then another person, I'm going to buy this for you. And then little by little, the huge network that I have really helped me to sponsor myself with the help of the companies and friends and family to make this happen.
One of the things which is really important when you're going out on these expeditions and challenge is around the mental resilience, the mental grit, the mental determination. You shared more about starting from this place of being very shy and being very scared. How did you build up that mental resilience and that mental toughness in order to go out and complete these challenges?
I think that's a work in progress, that whoever starts doing a big project that is bigger than yourself, something that is not just about your own benefit. I think anybody who starts doing that they're going to start this journey of learning how to be resilient, how to be strong, how to hear no's, how to say no's, how to be confident, and how to be vulnerable about not being confident and really accepting all the aspects that are helping me and is not helping me, that are not helping me, both sides, and just like being a full whole person. I would say it happened by me reading, thinking, meditating. I took this meditation class. It was a 10-day silent meditation. For 10 days, I was just sitting down silently meditating 14 hours a day, 10 days in a row. That was just a huge another thing that I did that was very helpful for me training my brain or disciplining my brain to do the things that I wanted to do rather than the things that it wants to do. And, developing new habits and new skills, just learning new habits. Like I wasn't ever an early riser. I just had to completely transform myself. And it was really hard. I just had to wake up early so many days until my brain realized that, okay, this is the new way of doing things. And like developing muscles, I for somebody with zero muscles on my body, I had to just work out so much. I had to force myself to transform, to change. And at the beginning, that's how it looks like. So if you're somebody who are thinking, oh, I'm never an early riser, I'm not a person who works out, who likes even working out, I'm not a person who climbs mountain, I'm not a person who does public speaking, I'm not an author, I'm not gonna even write a book, I'm not good at writing. I was all of that. Everything that I just said, I was all of that. Well, I published 4 books. I became a public speaker. I did a TED Talk. I spoke in front of thousands of people. The biggest audience I had was 2,000. For a shy person who couldn't even make an eye contact with the person sitting in front of me, now I had to go up there because my dream, my goal was way bigger than myself, and it wasn't about me anymore. And the power of declaration, just saying it out loud to the world, then you said it, like all your friends heard it. You just said you're going to go climb Everest. Now you have to come up with a way to do it. So throw your hat over the fence and go get it. Like when you throw it, then you have no other option other than coming up with a way of getting it. And that's what I did. That's what I still do. I just say that I do things that I'm not even sure where I'm going to get the money or the time or the training from, and then I'll figure it out somehow because I said it, because I have to now. It just came out of my mouth. So I respect my word, like it matters, and that my word is me. Like whatever I say, then I'll have to come up with a way to do it, and that makes me grow and be bigger. Because now I like somehow I need to talk with tons of people and ask for advice. I'm like, I just said I'm gonna go climb Everest again next year. I need to come up with that money. What should I do? Like, just tell me. And then and then there are generous people out there who want to help, who want to give you a good advice, who want to connect you to their connection. So you need to grow your network. You need to talk with people. Don't be ashamed of your goals, even though they are big or small or very different from who you are right now. If you are a quiet, shy person and you want to be the next Ellen DeGeneres, go be it. Go do it. Talk to people. Ask people. I think that there's so much power in telling people what you want to do. Declaring it makes it happen.
I love what you said about being vulnerable, but also about being a work in progress. I think that's so powerful that you're still on this journey, you're still learning, you're still open to learning. And one of the things you talked about as well is about training. So, getting your body physically prepared, developing muscles. Could you share more about how you physically got fit to do these challenges? Were you working with a coach? Were you doing yoga, weightlifting? How were you building your endurance? How were you fitting that training in? What would a typical week look like? I think that would be really fascinating to know more about.
Yeah, so I first started by joining a boot camp. And you know how crazy boot camps are. You just do this crazy fast workout. It consists of some weightlifting and some circuit training, and I did it a little bit, and I realized this is not enough, because if I want to can be able to hike up the mountain with a heavy backpack for 60 days in a row. I need something more than this. And so I started adding some yoga and stretching and some swimming and running to it. And then after a while, it was enough. But again, I realized it is not still enough for Everest. So what I added was I started carrying a heavy pack up and down the mountain. And as I was getting closer to the Everest day, I started doing it at night or 2 times in a row. So I would go from zero elevation to 10,000 twice in one day and once during the night, just so that my body knows that we're going to go to 30,000 feet, 29,000 feet, which is the elevation of Everest. And that's how I started training my body for Everest. And then since then, since I did different expeditions, like for example, Denali and Greenland, they needed their own training. For Greenland, because we were pulling sleds, now I had to train myself to pull sleds. In Denali, it had a little bit of pulling sleds, but not as much as Greenland. Greenland was 30 days of pulling. Denali was maybe like 4 or 5 days of pulling. The rest was carrying up the mountain. So I would just carry a very heavy backpack around as I'm washing dishes, I'm walking in the house, as I'm just, like whatever I'm doing, I have my heavy pack on. I'm living with a heavy pack of walking around, cleaning, cooking, talking on the phone. I have a pack on and the pack is heavy, and I increase depending on how good I'm doing. Some days I'm so sore that it's just everything hurts. So I have to do a lot of stretches. I need to take care of myself. That's a full-time job. Like recovering from the heavy workout, that's another full-time job. But then I change around the stuff. But I think the best thing that I've ever done that really increased the level of my training was that heavy pack on the mountain when I went from 0 to 10,000 feet.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, I've just got this image of you sort of walking around the house, pottering around with this really heavy backpack on, but then it'll just become the new normal, which I think is epic. You mentioned about recovery as well. What are your top tips around recovery? What sort of things are you doing on a regular basis to make sure that your body is in tip-top condition?
I think number one thing, like stretches are very important. Like I try to do a lot of yoga and stretching. That's number one thing. Number two is vitamins. Like try to eat well, eat enough protein and enough vegetables so that my body is not dealing with processed food or garbage food, because I want all my body's energy to go towards recovering from the workout rather than figuring out how to process this garbage food that I just had. So I'm very careful about what I eat and what I drink. I drink a lot of water, like chia seed, especially right now as I'm talking to you. I'm drinking chia seed with water, and that's very helpful. Another thing that I do is like try to walk in the sun for 20 minutes because Southern California is pretty sunny. We're lucky that way. So I can get that 20 minutes of sun because I think that vitamin D really helps my body with the immune system and everything. That has been very helpful. Another thing that I do, which would be probably hard for people to do, is that I eat piece of garlic sometime during the day, maybe after lunch, just because I want my digestive system to be clean. We are on the mountain and we eat and drink a lot of things that are not be 100% clean. So I do that for my immune system too, because I don't want to get sick. Every time that I get sick, it means for a week or two, I cannot work out. And when I don't work out, my body goes back. That doesn't go back completely, but it has to spend some of its energy on recovering. So I try not to get sick. So eating garlic, eating lemon, like a straight lemon, really helps me to and walking in the sun helps me to keep my immune system up. I fill up the bathtub with hot water. That's helpful. And then I'll go ice and cold, ice and hot, so that my muscle can, get more blood in and recover. I eat turmeric powder. That's very helpful. It has some anti-inflammatory. It's very helpful for the muscles when they are under pressure. So I even take garlic and lemon and turmeric with me on my expeditions. That's also very helpful. And like I try to massage my muscles that been under pressure. That's also very helpful.
I love all those tips. Amazing. And Sara, where's the best place for people to follow along with your journeys and to keep updated with future challenges and adventures?
People can follow me on my social media and my YouTube channel. I have videos of everything that I just told you. I have videos of that. My website also. My website is Climb Your Everest. You can also watch my TED Talk to see some parts of my journey. But I think from my website, it's much easier. Either sarasafari.com or climbyoureverest.org. Any of those websites. I guess sarasafari.com is much easier. Sarasafari.com, you can find everything that I just told you there.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure I put the links to both of your websites in the show notes so that people can come and find you, watch your TED Talk, and watch your other videos on YouTube as well. It's going to be so exciting to follow your journey next year with Everest. I'll be keeping my fingers crossed for you. But I'd love for you just to leave our listeners with final words of wisdom, final words of advice for other women out there who want to get more adventure in their life. What would you say?
I would say start now. There is no perfect time. Start right now. Don't wait. Even if it is a little small step towards your dream, don't wait for Monday and next summer and next year, or when the kids are out, or when I get this house and when I get the next car. Do it now.
Sara, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast to share more about your incredible life, the amazing challenges, and for all those amazing top tips. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Hey tribe, I hope you enjoyed the episode with Sara. My name is Sarah Williams. I'm the host of the Tough Girl podcast and the founder of Tough Girl Challenges, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. If you are interested in finding out more about climbing mountains, then please do go and visit toughgirlchallenges.com. I've spoken with so many amazing mountaineers who have done some incredible challenges. I'm just going to give you a couple of names now of mountaineers who have climbed Everest, because I have spoken to quite a few of them. I've spoken to the awesome Sarah Kumalo, who's a Zambian-born South African explorer and mountaineer. In May 2019, she became the first Black woman to climb Mount Everest. We've spoken to Australian Alzar. She's a mountaineer and the youngest woman to summit Mount Everest from both the north and the south side. And on that note, we've also spoken with Cathy O'Dowd, who was the first woman to climb both sides of Mount Everest. Marsha Gordon, she's a mum of two and became the fastest woman to complete the Explorers Grand Slam Challenge. We've also been speaking to Jo Bradshaw on a regular basis about her 7 summits attempt, and she's spoken in more detail about her summit of Mount Everest as well. We've also spoken with Tori James, Squash Falconer, and Molly Hughes. So well worth checking out those names for more information out about mountaineering. But if you are brand new to the podcast, then thank you so much for listening. New episodes come out every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. UK time. To find out more information about me, my background, and the other amazing women on the Tough Girl podcast, please do go and visit toughgirlchallenges.com, which is basically the main central hub. On the website, you'll find links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube as well. There's more information about all of my different adventures and challenges, from running the Marathon des Sables in 2016 through hiking the Appalachian Trail in 2017, cycling the Pacific Coast Highway in 2018, walking the Camino Portuguese and the Lycian Way in 2019, and most recently in 2020, walking the Overland Track in Tasmania. There are videos which go with every single one of those challenges apart from the Marathon des Sables, so they are all on the YouTube channel. But we have got such a wide range of incredible guests on the Tough Girl podcast. Just to give you some further names, we've spoken with Lauren Gay. She's a travel blogger and podcaster who's inspiring Black women to embrace nature and outdoor recreation through adventure. Alexandra Nemeth, she became the first Hungarian to climb the 7 summits. Alicia Doyle, she's a journalist and author of Fighting Chance, a winner of 2 Golden Gloves Championships titles and named the California Female Fight of the Year in 2000. Lippa Nessa's been on the Tough Girl podcast. She's a sports activist, coach, and co-founder of the I Think She's Offside podcast. We've spoken to Maya Rose Craig, who's also been known as Bird Girl. She's 18 years old. She's a British Bangladeshi top world teen birder, conservationist, and environmentalist. We've spoken with Nicole Snell, the CEO of Girls Fight Back. She's a solo adventurer and hike leads of Black Girls Trekking. I've also done a reflections episode as well, where I reflect back on the final 6 months of 2019 and the start of 2020. Plus I go on and answer questions from the Tough Girl tribe. So there is a ton of information available, so please do go check out toughgirlchallenges.com. It is fully supported by patrons. If you would like to support the mission of the Tough Girl podcast to increase the amount of female role models in the media, you can support in sterling, US dollars and euros. You can become a monthly subscriber, or you can become an annual subscriber, and that is all done through Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast. Please do go and check it out. There's different tiers that you can support at, and it really does make a huge amount of difference. If the Tough Girl podcast has motivated you, encouraged you, helped you to step outside your comfort zone, then pay it forward. Encourage other women and girls out there. And one of the ways that you can do that is by supporting the Tough Girl podcast, supporting me to produce this content and share these incredible stories. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it. I believe in you, so please believe in yourself. I'll be back with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl podcast. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.